So in this video, I'm going to finish off the cabinet, make the cabinets above. And as you can see from this SketchUp model, I had a very clear idea in mind of how I wanted them to look when they were finished. It almost stayed to this. The only thing I did was I reduced the size of the cabinets above just because I wanted some space to put some sort of floating shelves in, and I wanted a little bit more flexibility than this would give me. And obviously those top two cabinets would be very, very heavy too, to just hang on the wooden partition board. But I bashed that up in SketchUp in not very long at all. It's really quite an easy, intuitive package to use. So when that was done, I moved on to making the cabinets. So sadly, I lost the footage of me making the first large door, which was made from MDF. I then moved on to this door, which were the second set of doors. And I made these out of plywood, and now I realise why people don't use plywood to make cabinet doors, because it was horrendous. The material was just not very strong, and at some point in the future I know I'm going to be returning to these doors and replacing them. But the most important part about making these cabinet doors for me was the experience of using it. I've never used European style hinges before. I've never created a door in this format before. I just used a really basic shaker style door. There's loads of videos on YouTube if you're interested in finding out how to make this type of door, and I just watched a few of them and picked a really easy construction. And again, the footage for these was lost, but you'll see the process that I followed in a minute when I replicate it with the smaller size cabinet doors. So this is the first MDF door, the one that I don't unfortunately have the footage of making. I don't quite know what happened, a bit of a OneDrive error, and I lost it. So this is just me installing the door. It's quite a nice fit, and obviously I have never done or installed a door like this before, but all I did was I used some card to pack out an equal gap. You can see me inserting it there, just to pack out an equal gap, and I was absolutely gobsmacked that the first time it worked perfectly. I was really surprised. So this is just me having applied some silver paint, now applying some polish. I just used a really cheap polish for that. When that was done, I moved on to the second set of doors, and these are for the other end of the cabinet, and these ones were made completely out of plywood. And as you can see, I started by trimming the plywood up to the correct thickness. When I was happy, I then switched over and put a groove in the edge of the board to receive the plywood insert. And you can see here, this was actually a lot trickier than it looked. I ran all of the pieces of wood through, and when I got them through, I just went over and over and over the process, just gradually opening up the width of the table saw till I got a groove that was exactly the size of the piece of plywood that I wanted to use. With the stiles and the rails completed, I just laid everything out and gave it a little bit of a dry fit to make sure it worked. And of course, no garage workshop video would be complete without the pocket hole video. So this is me making the pocket holes. What I didn't realize when I made these was I'd cut the grooves too far. So I had to get a little piece of wedge of wood just to put in the end of the door to keep the two bits of wood the same and to enable me to screw it in. So there's me realizing I needed to put a little bit of wood in. But to be honest with you, it wasn't an issue. Once I'd glued it and just tapped in a little piece of wood, then the screws had something to take hold of, and they screwed in, and actually the doors were really solid at the end. I was quite surprised how solid they turned out to be. The other thing was, when I'd made these doors, I actually managed to get them at a perfect right angle. So I think essentially I'd got the design right, I'd got the creation, the cutting and everything right. I think it was just the material which really was an issue. And you can see there how it's raised up. It isn't exactly very flexible at all. So not a great piece of work there. When I'd done that, I cut the backboard. I actually made a big mistake with the backboard here, which luckily for me, I've muted this clip and you can't hear the absolute tributary of profanity that falls from my lips when I realised that I'd cut it wrong. So here I am deciding what to do, whether I can make 2 slots or do it the other way, and being quite unsure exactly what to do, I thought, oh, let's just see if it will fit anyway. But as you can see, it's very loose there and it's not going in as it should. Now, after what seems like an eternity, trying it again, seeing if I can get it to fit, taking it out and deciding what was the best course of action, I suddenly remembered that I had another piece of wood that I could use, that I could put on the table saw and cut down, which is essentially what I ended up doing in the end. As I said, not the greatest construction, the doors, but when they were made, they looked okay. When I'd put a couple of layers of paint on them, I went for the same colour scheme on here. You can see the slightly different wood. So the blue around the edge, which I really like, that blue from Aldi. And then I painted the inside with a silver paint that I had left over, which I wasn't sure how it would work. And it's funny because it's got almost like glitter in it, but it actually went on really, really well. It was a good, nice coat. So I gave it a few coats and I was happy with how it turned out. So when those doors were finished, I went back to test fitting them to the unit. I'm just piling up some wood here to try and get the door level the same as it is on the right. And as you can see from the caption, not exactly the most level of floors. In fact, it was very difficult to get the right level, but I managed to get it done in the end. I got the door fixed and I did exactly the same procedure as I'd done with the other door to fit it. When I got the first door fitted, again, I put my level on it and I was amazed at how level it was. It was really, really good, actually. The only thing that I didn't like was there was a slight different gap, but I didn't worry too much about that. I then moved on to putting the second door on, and as I think is common with these sort of things, the second door went on a lot more simply than the first one did. It was quite easy to get the second door on. Apologies for the camera angle here. Still not 100% getting these angles right, but the door went in and it fitted really well. I was very happy with how the two doors fitted in the end. After the doors were fitted, I put in some magnets just to catch the door. Because the doors weren't 100% flat due to the nature of the material, I just wanted to make sure that when they closed on the self-closer, they would catch at the end. So I had some of these magnets that were lying around that I bought for another project and never actually used them. So I just fixed them on, and then when they were finished, the door closed really nicely on both sides. Actually, it's probably the best thing about this door, to be fair. But the thing you learn with processes like this, you know, now I've made those doors, now I've seen the problem that I had with them, and now I've seen why the material didn't work very well. I'll never make them again like that, obviously, but it has also been a huge positive, you know, to have never made a door before, to not really ever using a machine to make the edging and do the door the way that I've done it, to actually have doors that function even if they look a bit ugly, is actually quite a big achievement. And one of the things about this channel is not everything I'm going to make is going to be top quality, but every skill pretty much that I've used in this video I've acquired new for this project, and of course most of it's come from YouTube. But it's really good to have a go, try, and what does work you keep, and what doesn't work you just change for the next time you do a project. But like I said, overall, on reflection, the doors work, they serve their purpose. They might not look great, but actually they're not going to get a huge amount of use, so I'm not too worried. So with those doors done and fitted, I then moved on to the doors for the above cabinets. I have to say these doors were made out of MDF, and they were much, much better, very much like the first door I made. I was able to bash them together incredibly quickly. They were nice and straight, very neat. Again, I had to knock a piece of wood in the end where I'd done the channels, and I think the next time I make shaker style doors, I'll do them in a slightly different way. It's like a tenon really in the end, but they looked really nice. I'd already made the carcass of the cabinet, duplicated the two of them, very basic standard cabinets. In order to keep the time of the video down, I didn't show making that, but it's really, really basic. So again, two doors fitted fine. I wedged a little piece of wood under there to keep them at the same level, and then I was able to fix them to the carcass really easily. I was quite surprised actually how easily they went on, but I suppose having been the third set of doors, I just got into the swing of how of doing it by then. with the doors attached, it was time to offer them up and to put them on the wall. Now, I was quite confident here. I had a laser. I've got a little laser, another product I got from Lidl, actually, a little Parkside one. But I was actually very pleased with how this part of the project worked. I'd got a nice line on the wall. I knew exactly where I was going. As you can see, it is quite awkward if you're doing a project like this on your own. But I managed to get the first cabinet on the wall, and then I used a beam, that flat piece of wood, and my laser to line up the second cabinet. And when I'd got the spirit level on the top, when it was exactly equal, I put it in and got the measurement in. Again, quite fiddly to do this if you're on your own. And with hindsight, I should have asked Mrs. B to help me out. But I got the cabinets on the wall. They were really nice and sturdy. I just put in some self-tapping screws through the wooden battens that are at the back of the carcasses. Not many, I think I only used 4 in the end, but I did make sure that I got them exactly on one of the partition struts. So, as you'll see, quite happy. Quite happy that they're on the wall, quite happy they stayed on the wall, and of course quite happy they were flat. The next thing I did was bring in the door blank. I mentioned this in a previous video. After going through 20-30 different options for what I was going to put on the countertop, and having thought, oh, I'm going to have to laminate some plywood or get an off-cut or get a specially designed piece of worktop. I didn't need to do any of that. I just found that door blank in B&Q, and I bought that. It was about 28 quid, I think. It worked perfectly. The next thing was the shelves in the gap between the 2 cupboards. And again, really, really straightforward. I'm sure many of you have done this project before. I started with fixing in 1 screw at the bottom. And then when I'd done that, I'd got them level. Actually, very, very level, these. I was surprised. They don't look level. And I think that's to do with the nature of the roof not being straight and where the cabinets are. But the cabinets are level. They're straight. The shelves are level. They're straight. So when I'd done that, I just put the shelves on and we were good to go. The next stage was installing the electrics, and I'm just using a very, very basic, simple system here. So I ran some trunking around the partition wall all the way around onto my new wall that I'd created in front of the garage door. Just really basic, and I ran 2 cables. One was going to be the power supply, almost like a sort of extension lead that you would have at home. And the other one was to run the LED light, which I put under the counter. It was just a really simple under the counter LED light. So ran that, got the socket on. This is the cable that I'm using is cable that I bought from B&Q. It's the correct cable for this. Ran it through, put the trunking on, and then I started to do the electrics. Very, very basic. The one that you can see plugged in now is the LED light that came. For this one, the other cable, I actually had to buy a plug. I can't remember the last time I bought a normal 13 amp plug. It's been a long, long time. So I bought the plug, attached it obviously to the wire and plugged it in that side, and then I could focus the other side on the socket. With the socket wired correctly, it's just a case of testing it. Well done. So the last thing to do was to attach the handles. I got this pack of, I think it was 8 handles from B&Q, and I just made a very simple bog standard template out of a thin piece of cardboard. You can see me holding it up there. I've been caught out before on a project when I didn't, and I ended up with wonky handles. And let's face it, nobody in their right mind wants to have a wonky handle on one that isn't straight. But these went on a charm. They're actually really cheap. I think they're only like £9 for all of the handles. They're really nice quality, and they look really good as well. So I was very pleased with that. And that was the last job, and here is the finished unit. I have to say, overall, I'm very satisfied with how it looked. There are a few things that I would have changed if I'd have done it differently. I certainly wouldn't have made the bottom right-hand doors, the 2 doors, out of plywood. I would have made them all out of MDF, but I think for what was essentially quite a big project for an amateur, I'm pleased with how it turns out. It looks fantastic. The storage is amazing, and it got everything in it that I wanted to get in, which was at the end of the day what I did this project for. So I hope you enjoyed these videos and you've enjoyed this project. If you do, please subscribe and hit like and the notification bell. It would be great to have some more viewers to my channel. I think at the time of recording this, I've got 35 and I never thought I'd get to 5, let alone 35. So thank you very, very much for watching this series. I've got some great projects coming up as well. So if you have enjoyed this video, please make sure you subscribe and I'll catch you on future projects. Happy woodworking.